Happy November. It's crazy that it already is here and that the holidays are right about to knock on our door. So, we are very excited to have you all. Today, we're going to be covering metrics second edition. So, we're going to be going a little bit deeper into metrics today. With that being said, if this is your first time seeing our little lovely faces, Erica and Jody is my co-collaborator here. We started Hughes and Strong just honestly because we nerded out all about systems and different software and how do we make this work for the people on the ground because everybody is so different. And this led into actually creating Hughes and Strong so we can do this full time. So like I said, everybody's a little bit different. So anything we give you today is going to be with the caveat of see if it works for you first and foremost.
All right, and so today we are continuing our talk on metrics. We're going to do a quick recap of what we covered last month, that intro into metrics. Then we're going to show you how to create custom metrics and to give you some examples and inspiration for different metric visuals that you could use. The whole goal today is just to help make metrics approachable. This is definitely not a, hey, you should add all of these things in to your client's reporting and, really get into all of these deep numbers. Nope, this is just to make them approachable so that if down the line you think, oh, I really want to show this to my client, how can I do that? This is going to give you that tool so that you know where to find it and then how to set it up if and when you want to. And then after that, open Q&A to talk about anything inside of Double. Just let us know what you're curious about.
Yep, absolutely. And just to kind of add on to that, like we said, this is going to be a little bit more high level, like what buttons do you click? This is not going to be the most tangible. We'll share examples because I think it's kind of hard to get the concept without some examples. But if you want to take the deep dive and go to Google, Facebook groups, the polarizing chat GPT to figure out for your industry or for your client what those best metrics are going to be, awesome. This is more going to be how do once I figure out what I want to add in there, or how do I start? That's going to be kind of today's topic. So we are
Yeah.
going to give a quick recap to make sure that you don't have to go watch last month's recording to even sit here and absorb, but just taking that into account that there are plenty of resources about industry specific or standards and stuff like that. So we will not be going into each individual niche today, but more how do we use it and how do we make this less overwhelming so that when you get an idea, you can go in and know what buttons to click.
All right, with that, let's go ahead and jump into that quick recap. So recap of Metrics 101 from last month. Metrics are key data points or KPIs, but they're information that pulls from your financial reports and custom variables that you may pull in to create visuals and you can use those to show patterns and trends and that kind of thing. So to get there, you're going to be looking for the metrics tab on your close page. So your close page is going to be here. Right next to it, you'll see metrics before you get to reporting. Now keep in mind that this is only available for those connected clients because it is pulling in from the financial reports. So it has to have that data to be able to pull in. The variables are basically a spreadsheet of information divided into tabs. So how it presents is very similar to a spreadsheet with rows and columns. And then the visuals give you the opportunity to create graphs or KPI cards and show that information in different ways. With those visuals, we have 7 different options. Here's a quick snapshot of each of those: bar charts, line charts, donut and pie charts, and then KPI cards as well. So a lot of variety to be able to play around with how information looks. You can see that these are all core costs, core costs, core costs. It's the same thing, but presented in a different way. So you can play around with that and figure out like which one of these graphs or this visual would be the most helpful.
Absolutely. And we wanted to give a couple of examples before we even go deep diving. So when we say simple example, that's not to reduce the value that comes with these,
Mhm.
but it's just to say that these are ones that We won't have to do any advanced formulas or put in any like manual numbers. These are things that we can pull from the profit and loss, the balance sheet, the cash flow sheet without having to do number crunching. So we could easily do income versus expenses. We could easily show those key account balances to kind of keep an eye on some of those. We could easily do sales by service line or location. Again, if you have those set up in the COA, or we could do cost of goods sold. All of those are straight pulling, no advanced, no crazy stuff behind the scenes, and they're very easy to set up 5, 10 minutes without having to do any crazy thing past that. So again, simple does not mean that it's not valuable because again, I think a whole lot of like just metrics in general is how do we tell the story of this? How do we make it visual so that it's not just a P&L that somebody's going to skim and hope that they understand what you're trying to show them, right? So just kind of helping put some context around these simple are easier to set up and they pull directly from our like management reports essentially. Some more examples that we're going to cover today and get a little bit more creative about are these customer advance metrics where we can start to show margins. We can start to show percentage of income or expenses. Think donut chart, like how much of the chart is it taking up? We can even do kind of crazy things like budget versus actual. So there is a lot that we can do here. Honestly, possibilities are endless. These will take a little bit more to set up and maybe a little bit more to maintain. So, a lot
Mhm.
of this is going to come into what's in scope for you. And I will stand on my soapbox for 2 seconds and then I will get off very quickly. But I want to make sure that we're really anchoring in that, like with these custom or advanced metrics, this is more work. Okay, so make sure that you are accounting for this in your scope and making sure that you are actually valuing your time and effort that you put into this, not only for the setup that it requires, but the actual advanced knowledge that comes into these, because inevitably you're going to have client questions about these, right? Like the goofy thing about setting up a visual is that it makes this more easier to grasp, and then it's natural for somebody to have questions about them, right? So let's set these up with the understanding that one, it's going to be a little bit more work. And two, we're probably going to have some more advanced questions about it. So we want to make sure that we are valuing our expertise, our knowledge, and the time that we're setting this up. So now I will get off my soapbox. That is just being mindful of your scope because, like we want to mention, like this is a rabbit hole, which is awesome, very exciting. A lot of us can get very nerdy about this. If you are anything like Jody and I, you can go down it for hours. That also means be very intentional about setting this up in your scope, right? But also go in, do a little bit of brainstorming before you get in here. What do I want to tell or show? Because I mean, I was even guilty of this. I was watching Tyler Otto's video to kind of get some inspiration to figure out where to start. But it's super easy to get so locked into, okay, what are the formulas? What are the metrics? What are the like pieces I want to show without really taking in the full scope of wait, not the formulas I'm trying to add, but what's the story I'm trying to tell? What am I trying to illustrate here? What patterns am I trying to show? So just a really quick, like, make sure that you're not just putting numbers for numbers' sake because it's a lot of work. Like we want to make sure that we're actually giving value and putting in things that are going to be helpful for this client that helps them realize like these discrepancies or these patterns. So maybe that was a little bit of a secondary soapbox, but I just want to make sure that we're all going into this not getting so focused on the numbers, the formulas, the like percentages, like this is nitty gritty, but we want to go in and do some brainstorming first about what is this client even having trouble with? What are those areas that they came to me to say, okay, these are numbers on a page, but I don't understand this, or I'm having an issue with this area of my business. That's going to drive the numbers and the metrics that you set up far more than the formulas that somebody tells you to set up. So just make sure, set a timer, be mindful of the rabbit hole that this can become.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Erica. All that is very valuable to keep in mind for sure, because it's easy to start filling the pages with visuals, and then those visuals become overwhelming just as much as the P&L does. All right, but okay, so how do we create these custom? Let's get into our deep dive even more here. So creating custom variables, when you are on a variables tab, there's a little plus button down here in the corner. Click on that. It'll give you the option to select the type of tab that you want to. So you can add additional profit and loss, balance sheet, cash flow. You can add more of those and kind of customize them like a profit and loss by class or project. Uh, but today we're focusing on the custom pages. So you just give it a name and add it. And then once you have that, the second step is to start adding in your rows. And here you can do numbers or formulas. You can also create some dividers just to help yourself break up the information. And as you are working in there, we do have some things that we can edit. So here's one of the examples that we have with income targets. So we've got some numbers, and then we've created formulas to kind of tally those up. Space here, some cost of goods sold numbers, and another formula, and then we formulated our gross profit. So in this example here, we are doing targets. It's kind of another word for budget, but I don't need to plug in an entire budget into my variables here if I'm only going to be looking at specific numbers. We'll get into that in more detail when we jump over to the demo. But once you've got this started, you can double click in here to rename it. You have some settings over here where you can change the type. You can also do some copy and pasting in here as well to help save time as you're filling these in or getting them started. And then, of course, you can update the formulas even after you have put them in the first time. All of the variable tabs here, all of them are going to show you 12 months of data. So that'll always be the standard theirs. It's always going to show 12 months. There's no way to customize that to be more or less. It will always be 12 months worth. But for this deep dive, we're going to be able to just show you a lot more in the demo. So we're going to go ahead and jump over there. As we mentioned, drop comments or questions in the chat, whether it's about metrics or anything else. But let me switch over to the demo and we will show how to do these. All right. So when you are in here, again, we're coming to the metrics tab here at the top. It will default to the variables pages. And you'll see down here, we can tab through. We've got our full profit and loss. You have your full balance sheet, your cash flow. These are not ones that you can edit. So you can try to click in here. This is pulling directly from the accounting software. So they're not editable. Um, it just is what it is, but you can add additional ones here. So if you wanted to add more, you can, and then make some adjustments about classes or customers, name it what you want. So that is available there. And then as we mentioned, you can do a custom tab as well. So I'm going to name this one example for today.
And one thing I want to mention here, work with your brain here. Like everybody's going to set up their tabs differently. You don't have to have one tab per KPI or formula that you're doing. So I think that's one to just note, like I've seen people where their tabs get crazy. And if that's what works best for your brain, go for it. Like this is
Mhm.
not to should on you, right? But that is to just mention like we can do a single tab with all of our different KPIs. So just kind of keep in mind, I don't want you to feel like you have to create a new tab for each formula.
Right, right. So we've got our example here. This is what it's going to show you when you initially add it. And then up here in the corner is where you can start adding rows. So I'll just add a number here. Um, type in, and then this would be something where I am going to manually add numbers in. So that's what the number column would be, or a number row would be. Adding in a formula. This one is where you can really start getting crazy and have lots of fun. Let's say we want to do a profit margin. I can name that here. And so maybe I want to do. So once you start typing, it's going to show you where those are. So I have these set up in KPIs. I have them accounts or variables with income in the name in income targets as well. And then here's my profit and loss, my balance sheet, cash flow. So as you start typing up here, it's going to limit the list to choose from. All right. So that's what I'm going to pick for that and click apply. And so now it's going to give me that margin. If I needed to edit this, I can always come in here and edit the formula, select new ones, change that up however I need to. If I needed to change the name, I can do that by double clicking in here as well. If I have this and I want to change it to a number or change it to a divider, I can do that as well. And you can get into more things as you build it out. If you want to change the style, you can bold it. You can indent it if you need to help add some variety to how it's displayed.
And one thing I want to mention here is that that styling and indent is for you, right? We're going to create visuals that help our clients see it. This page purely for you. So just think about what you're going to need here. Don't worry so much about, oh, I want to make this bold so it's easier for the client. That won't show on this page. This is just for us to be able to visualize and keep everything straight. So just make sure that you're making those changes for you specifically.
Right. So that's what that would look like here. And one thing to note on all of these, now if you try to go off of the page, it's going to warn you, but you always, always, always want to hit save. It will warn you if you make a change to something and then you don't end up saving it. So say I want to do this update and then I move off, it will prompt you to save. But just heads up, I can't tell you the number of times I've built something out and then accidentally said, "Oh yeah, I'm fine to move off," and then went, "No, I meant to save that and I didn't." And then you have to redo it all. So this is an area of double where you definitely need to hit that save button up here in the corner. All right, so here's a KPI tab that we created that has a bunch of different examples of formulas and numbers that you can enter in that we then use to create additional visual examples as well. So this is just kind
Yeah.
of some information or inspiration.
Exactly. And I want to take a minute to pause here, just to make sure it's clear and we didn't skim past anybody. Numbers are the manual. I'm going to pull this from my customer's CRM or their POS system or somewhere else for
Hmm.
to enter in manually the number of customers they have or the number of employees they currently have, right? So that's a really good, when we're talking about numbers, I want to make sure that that's really clear, like what's going to be a manual entry versus a formula that's going to pull from some of our other pieces and do the calculations for us. So when we're talking about numbers versus formulas, that's an easy way to think about it. The other thing I want to mention here is that going back to really thinking about the story you want to create, I have an example here for labor as a percentage of income. So that formula is labor divided by the total income. I also could do labor as a percentage of expenses. Both of those are going to tell my client very different things, right? So, labor as a percentage of income may be something like we don't want our rent or our labor going over 30% of what we make. So, we're going to keep an eye on that and watch it versus labor as a percentage of expenses. Maybe, hey, out of the pie chart of all of my expenses, how much of the pie is taken up by labor? Right? So very, very similar. It's super easy to get lost and be like, wait, do I put this over income or expenses? Right? And get stuck in that formula. That's when I would like zoom back, take a step back and think about the like actual story I'm trying to tell or the pattern I'm trying to point out here. So we just wanted to highlight that in the examples because you can do these a million ways to Sunday, depending on how you're trying to paint that picture or the issue that the client's having that you're trying to watch out for.
And one thing to note with your numbers. So as Erica mentioned, these formulas, they're pulling from somewhere else, depending on how you have that set up. They're pulling from other accounts or other data and then doing that calculation for you. Numbers are something, as she mentioned, that you have to manually enter. So when you initially set these up, you'll be adding in all of your historical information, Or if it's something you're like, okay, we're starting this month, then you enter it in for this month, and then each subsequent month you're going to be adding that in. So the income targets that we have, I have this set up as an example. So we set this up previously. We've created the new October close, and you'll see that October is empty. So all of this will remain in here. And I can come in and say, okay, what were the targets supposed to be for October? And I can copy and paste these in, or I can manually enter them in either way and get that information. And I'm going to copy these over too, just for simplicity. Now, once I hit save, my formulas are going to populate. There we go. So now when I go to create the November close, I'll have one column to update. So for maintenance and for continuing this data set, it'll just be 1 month at a time. So when you initially get started, if you want historical data in there, you'll want to paste it all in or manually enter them all in. And then it's just 1 month at a time to maintain.
Yeah, really good mention there because like many things in our business, the setup is different than the maintenance. So
Yes.
your setup is going to be more inclusive and have more data that you have to enter, but month to month, it's going to be less objectively because you only have to fill in that month. Good
Yeah.
mention there, Jody.
And as we mentioned, you could do a full budget in here, but it does take effort to get everything added in. So if you want to be more particular or more selective of the lines that you put in and say, okay, I'm only going to add in the ones that we're actually using for visuals. Because like Erica said, this is all internal. The point of these tabs is to be able to create visuals to show your client. Um, so it's not necessarily something that you have to have fully built out like you might have in an actual Excel spreadsheet.
Exactly. And just to say that a different way, like the if we're doing a budget versus actual or a target versus actual, this is not going to be a full page like our P&L in the management report. We're going to be able to create a visual off of it, like a line chart, a bar chart, a donut chart, however we want to. But I think it's really important because a lot of us can get stuck in this, well, I have to have a full budget so that they can see it all. They're objectively not going to. So that's why we're saying be selective in what you're actually going to show and compare budget versus actual or target versus actual because you may not need all of the line items. You may not create a graph for all of them. So just think about the ones that you're actually going to create a graph for, and that's what I would start with. Also, additionally, you can always add to. So I think one thing that's really important for Jody and I, and that we have to come back to a lot is, hey, let's start with something. We can always add to or adjust based on what our client needs or how this develops. We don't have to have everything set up in order to launch this, in order to start this. So we can always kind of add to as we go and as we figure out those different things that the client is going to want to watch for.
Hmm. Right. I guess let's pop over to the visuals tab and just kind of give that example as well using some of these. This is our demo account, so we do already have quite a few examples shown. For the first ones here, target versus actual with their income and the COGS. But if I wanted to create a new one, just click Add Visual. And maybe I'll do the gross profit here. Then, so once I give it a title and I select which one I want to use, I really like the area chart. And then I can come in here and look for um, the gross profit target and then the gross profit actual. So the way that I always do this is start typing. If you want, you can skim this list. But what we discovered as we were prepping is that sometimes it's not necessarily in alphabetical order. So you see there's two KPIs up here at the top, but then you have to scroll down and then there's some more here in the middle. So some of them can get lost if you're like, I created all of these things and now I'm not seeing them. Where are they? Just start typing, and that'll help. So
Yeah, I
I'll do
definitely had a
my
mini panic
target.
because I was like, Jody, I made all of these. They're not showing up. She was like, just type it in the search bar. You can probably find it. So if you run
Yeah,
into that issue, or maybe save yourself from running into that and just start typing in the first place.
right. All right, so I have my target in there, and now I'm going to put my actual in here, and I'll make that orange, save. And so now my client's going to be able to see a clear differentiation, excuse me, of the target versus what they actually brought in. While we're in here, you can compare. This may not be a particular one that you would do that for, uh, but you can also decide how many months you're showing. Remember, you have 12 months available, but you don't have to use all of those. It will default to that every time, but maybe I just want to show calendar year for where we are today, and I'll hit save, and that's going to add it in there for me up here at the top.
And I think one thing to mention here, um, w- there are some quirks in here. One of the ones that I want you to be careful about is at least, Jody, check me on this actually. Can you go hit the cog icon on that to see if we can change the color once we've created
No,
it?
you can't. So
Okay,
in order to
so
change the color, you have to remove it
remove that variable and
and
add
then
it
add
back.
it back in and choose a different color.
Okay,
Great
so
one.
the only reason I mention that is because when I was creating a couple for this demo, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to do these two. And they ended up being so close that you couldn't really tell the difference. So just be careful in when you're creating these that you probably choose colors that are a little bit further across on the color spectrum, just because it is a little bit more cumbersome to go in and change them later. So it's not saying that
Mhm.
you can't. There is a workaround for deleting it and re-adding that variable specifically, but I would kind of give you the tip ahead of time to choose colors that are further apart.
I have seen people also, if they're doing multiple visuals, but they're using the same variable, that they will use the same color across the different visuals. So some people find that helpful. Others, they don't care. It's like whatever colors pop up, totally fine. Others are like, nope, if I'm using gross profit here, if I use it anywhere else, I want it to be the same color. That's just up to you. You do have that option to select those.
And then one thing that's important to note here as you're creating the visuals, you can rearrange them. So those
Yes.
dots on the side kind of hamburger stack allow you to move them around, or if you pull it to one side, then that's how you create the two side by side there. So that one was not intuitive for me. So I just want to point that out while we're in here that sometimes we go back and add one and we're like, oh, I actually want these two next to each other because they make a really nice comparison. But I was having trouble with that personally. So at least want to kind of mention that
Yeah.
that is possible. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of playing around on the page.
Yeah. And how you do have them arranged here is how they will show up on your management report. So when you go to the reporting tab, or in your interactive reports in the client portal, however you have them arranged here is how they'll show up there as well.
Yep,
All
absolutely. And
right.
I think as you're scrolling down, let's talk through a couple of those other examples just to make sure that we're not just showing the tangibles, but we're actually helping give people some inspo. So that profit margin is an easy KPI card, is what that's called. So it's just a quick reference. There's no necessarily like donut or anything associated with it. But remember how I was talking about that percentage of income versus percentage of expense? These are really good examples. So that percentage of income on the left-hand side is kind of being able to show that versus how I may break that down into a donut chart and see where all of my expenses came from. So just wanted to make sure that we were
Yeah.
kind of highlighting how that could be differentiated and shown as well.
And as you're doing this, if you decide, oh, I don't really like the look of this, let me change it and see if it looks different. If I were to do a donut chart instead of a pie chart, you can always play around with that to see what the differences are, and how your client might like to see that.
Yeah, exactly. So honestly, TLDR version, there's a lot you can do in here, both from pulling just the stuff off of the profit and loss or balance sheet, like that income versus expenses. Oh my gosh, me as an owner, that would actually put a light bulb on my head versus like actually trying to see that in a profit and loss where it's all just black and white numbers on the page. So you can do a whole lot. And we would actually recommend starting with just those kind of regular tabs or default tabs. But just know that you can take this as far as you would like to. Each of these, really important mention, there is a Canyon request out there for this, but at this current time in Double's history, we cannot take one that we've created for one client and copy and paste it or create a template over for these metrics. So that's also one to just note. And that's part of the reason we talked about scope here as well, because these will be created for each individual client, which makes sense, right? Each client is going to look at something different. We may have different industries across our clients and different stuff that they care about. But we just want to make sure and mention that on the front end. You're not missing anything if you don't see a template for this.
Right. Yep. And that's actually great timing because Heather just chimed into the chat asking about if I create a variable for one client, does that then translate to all clients that it's available on? So we're talking about being here on the variables tab. If you create a new tab here, is that new tab going to be available across all your connected clients? Unfortunately, the answer is no. All of the variables, everything related to metrics is client specific. So whatever you create here, it will be only for this client.
Yep. And I know last time we talked to the team, the double team is trying to work on and kind of brainstorm this. The reason that it's limited right now, just so you can understand kind of the thought process behind, is these pull from the the
Chart of
COA from
accounts.
what you
Yeah.
have created for each individual client. So you may not have that exact line item in another client's chart of accounts. So that's kind of what the team is troubleshooting behind the scenes is how can we do that if each client's chart of accounts is different. So that may not be an immediate fix. That's the reason why, in case anybody else is just like, I don't understand why this is hard, because that was me.
Mm.
I don't understand software development. That is not my forte. So at least wanted to give you the why behind the scenes, that this isn't a quick and easy fix for the team behind the
Yeah.
scenes.
All right. With that, I mean, wide open for questions, everybody. Anything that you have about what we've covered today. If you don't have questions about what we covered today, are there any other areas of double, any other features, anything that you're trying to troubleshoot or that you just don't understand or you've been curious about and want to explore more? The floor is open. So go ahead and throw those questions in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So Martha's got one to kick us off related to metrics, but again, feel free to throw it related to metrics or not. So Martha's asking, was the number
Mm,
of new clients that we saw a little while ago something that was pulled in or that was manual? So easy way to think about this, my coaching answer is think about whether this is in QBO anywhere. If it's not, it's a manual number that we entered. So answer here, tangibly, those are ones that we actually pulled and entered manually. I honestly could not tell you if there is a Zap or an API behind the scenes that could do some number magic for you. That one's a little bit over my pay grade, or at least not something that we have delved into to
yeah.
figure out if that is possible behind the scenes. I won't say it is. I won't say it isn't. We just haven't explored it. This one personally, the way that we set this up is just a manual entry. So we
Mhm.
went in and added these numbers, and then each month after, you would go in and review that POS system or CRM system or invoicing system, whatever, to pull those couple of numbers that you need to enter
Yeah.
in. So, Martha, hopefully that gives you a behind the scenes, like think about whether it's in QBO and you can pull it. Otherwise, it was a manual one.
I think that's a good point to make, but also I could also see where this could get confusing too, because Double can pull in and say, oh, you've got 5 new customers this month with the
Oh,
newly
yeah.
added customers,
Yeah.
but that is not something that feeds into metrics. So those reports that we get on the close page for your payee and entity review reports, those are not feeding into your metrics area. But you could look at that and then quickly update your metrics. If you are looking at those reports for the past month and you're using that for something else, that would be a pretty quick review it here and then jump over to the next tab and enter in that data as well.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that because I didn't necessarily make the connection there, but it seems obvious, right? Like, well, if it's pulling over in this area, could it pull over here? Current answer is not at this time, but that
Right.
does make it an easy reference point that we can go look at that pretty quickly and pull it over into this section. With that, Jody, we are getting close to time, so
Yep.
we may switch back to the slides and just mention next month's topic as well as how to get help. If you are like, "Ooh, cool, now I have a laundry list of things that
Hmm.
I need help with."
Yep. So save the date. Our next Q&A is going to be December 17th. Um, and we are going to do like a little deep dive into prepping for year end. So kind of give some suggestions on how to approach adding in things that you might need to do for year end or building that out if you haven't built that out before, and you want to do it for the first time and apply it across multiple clients, that kind of thing. So we'll be touching base on prepping for year end next month.
Yep. And then if you enjoyed just some freebies and learning more about Double, we have these monthly Q&As. Like I mentioned, you can always go back to our YouTube channel where past recordings. So if you want to go skim the topics that we've covered before or go back to Metrics 101, more than welcome to. We also have an additional resources page that's changed the name now. So hughesandstrong.com/double instead of /keeper for any PDFs. So if you're curious about how to use tags or how to set up your client portal and some of the options there, we definitely have some fun PDFs that can get you started there. And then that kind of naturally leads into if you need more help, reach out. We have a full spectrum. We specialize in double right now. So this is one that, regardless of whether you land on the side of, hey, can you just look at my account and see what I could be doing better? Or kind of take a look with fresh eyes, all the way to, hey, I really need this set up, but I don't want to do the tedious clicks or anywhere in between. Definitely reach out. I think one of the ones that I want to mention specifically for this kind of Q&A is if you have a vision for, hey, I'd really like to set these metrics up, but I'm getting caught, I can't figure out the buttons or I don't have time. That's a really good one to reach out. Again, we love this sort of stuff and figuring
Mhm.
out whether it's possible or what buttons you need to click or how to configure it. So if you're running into time crunch with end of year or just like, this doesn't sound fun, that's a really great place to kind of reach out. We're happy to help on any capacity, whether that's just answering a quick question and pointing you to a button or actually helping you set up something. So that's our quick mention. If you do see your task list stacking up for adjustments that you want to make in double, feel free to reach out so you don't have to do that by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, in addition to what she was mentioning with metrics, that kind of goes for any reporting that you might be pulling from your accounting software. Especially QBO has an extensive report listings. If there's anything in there that you're like, I really want to be able to see this in double, can I? Bring it on over to us. That's one of my favorite things to do is to troubleshoot and see, can I replicate something from somewhere else inside of double? So I'm happy to do that work for you.